I'm making some more outdoor holiday porch or yard decorations in this video, and I'm starting out cutting two short test pieces at a 50-degree angle on the miter saw. Once I get those cut, I'll take them over to the layout table and just put them together to see if I like the angle. It looks okay, so I take them back over to the saw to cut the other ends at the same angle. All the cuts for this build are going to be at that same angle and opposing cuts, so there's a short edge and a long edge on each one. And you can cut each pair at the same time like I'm doing here. And if you don't like 50 degrees, you can do 45 or whatever looks good to you. I'm just starting out with an arbitrary length for the first pair, and there are two pieces for each length. Then I cut another pair a little longer than the first, and then another pair a little longer than those. And remember I said this dust hood and chute worked fairly well for dust collection? Well, I realized as I was making these cuts that it wasn't working all that well after all. So I did a little investigating and found out that the duct had fallen off the collector. So it was doing a great job of sucking in any dust that went under the bench, but other than that, no. I took a little break to fix that. You probably get where I'm going here, so I'll show you a version I built before I started doing YouTube, and I've received a few compliments on it. So I'll give you a look at this one that I built a couple of years ago, and this thing is, I built it for outdoors, to be an outdoor decoration, so it's pretty big. It's like, well, it's the main trunk of this tree is a 2x4, and it's an 8-footer, and it extends about an inch beyond that, so 97 inches tall. And I started out at the bottom, and I was cutting these boards that were leftover trim boards from the house build, and I cut the ends at about a 20-degree angle. The first board at the bottom is like 31.5 long side to long side, and each board from there up I shortened by about an inch and put a whole bunch of boards on there all the way to the top where I ended in a board that was just a triangle. And then I put, I don't know, 2 or 3 coats of clear polyurethane on it, and it's been a porch decoration ever since. Well, during the holiday season, you know. This time I'm doing it a little differently, making it out of angled boards instead of straight boards. There are a bunch of different ways to make these, so I figure I'll try a different one every year for a while, just for fun. I started out by only making the next pair an inch or so longer than the previous, but after the first couple I started to increase that a bit. I'll show you the actual measurements later, but I'm just judging it by eye at the moment. I got a few more pairs cut and moved it down on the table so I'd have more layout room, and kept going. I didn't want as big of a tree this time, so I'm shooting for about 4 feet tall or so. I decided it needed another short pair up at the top, so I took a measurement and cut a pair for up there. That looks a little better for this size of tree. I cut one more long pair for the bottom and decided that was tall enough because it still needs a trunk. Now I just need to fit in a couple shorter pieces at the bottom to fill in that center area. The last pair I cut, but then decided to make them a bit shorter so the length differences look the same as the previous pair to the one before it, if that makes any sense. Second time, still not quite right. Third time's a charm. Pick the best side. There we go. Then it's time for a trunk to hold up these branches. Try this board. Pretty good for length, but it's a bit too wide, I think. How about this one? Too wide and too short. How long do I need? How about this old board I have laying around? Nope, it's warped and wobbly, both ways. No wonder I haven't used that one yet. Well, let's see how a weathered old 2x4 looks. That's the one. I started at the top, but figured I'd better knock the corners off a bit at the miter saw. Then I marked the center of the board all the way down, and I think that was it for that day. I decided to make a little jig to hold each board against to make sure I got them all at the right angle, and I cut a couple of scraps for spacers too. Probably way overkill for this project, but I think it did speed up the process a little. I'm going to glue and brad nail these in place, and of course, right off the bat, I have a problem. Two of the brads didn't drive in all the way. I tried to hammer them in. That didn't work, so I tried to pull them with my nail puller, but they just broke. So I just grabbed a nail set and smashed them over and in. It's good enough for who it's for. It must have been just a hard spot or a knot in that 2x4 or something, because after that little hiccup, it was pretty smooth sailing. And like I said, the jig and spacers weren't really needed for this, but it did help to get things lined up faster and more accurately than just lining up everything by eye. I'm using Titebond 3 for this as it's an outdoor project, but I'm not overly concerned with getting even coverage or anything. I'm just squirting some glue on there and brad nailing them on because it doesn't take much to hold these in place. There isn't any real stress on them or anything. They're just holding up their own weight. I did run into a slight issue with the last two pair of boards. They didn't want to line up as well as the other ones did. I don't know why. I fiddled with it for a bit and then just kind of split the difference and fudged it in. How does it always work out that a nail gun will always run out 2 or 3 nails from the very end? I quick grabbed some more just to finish, and you know what? Sometimes an 18 gauge brad nailer will not drive 16 gauge brads. I can tell you that for a fact. They'll jam in there quite snugly, requiring tools and a lot of fussing to pry them out. I finally got it though, and with the proper caliber ammunition loaded, I finished it out. So with that done, I move on to the other builds, and these are two projects that require minimal building really. Most of the work on these is going to be more decorating than building. I started out with a couple offcuts I had that are roughly 1x6s and just cut them to the lengths I want. One about 42 inches long and the other about 30 inches or so. Then I draw a shape onto a scrap piece of 1x12 and cut it out on the bandsaw. and you could cut it out with a jigsaw. You could use plywood for this, or even the boards if you wanted to, because this is going to be painted anyway. And there's the shape. Kind of looks like a Santa hat. Then I give that stuff a quick sand with 120 grit on the random orbit sander, just to clean them up, take the lumberyard marks off, smooth them out a touch, and knock off the sharp edges and corners. Nothing too extensive here, as all this is going to get painted. So after I get all the sawdust made for the day, I let the dust settle a while and then move on to finish. Green is the order of the day for the tree, of course, and I'm doing the thinned down mix of craft paint and water so I can use it like a stain. And that's basically because I don't have any green stain, and I didn't want to make a trip to town. This will do what I want it to do, though, and that's give it some green color, but still let the grain of the wood show through some. You can see it kind of soak into the wood like a penetrating stain does. Then after it's on there a bit, the wood grain becomes a little more pronounced. I did all the flat front surfaces, which was all I was going to do, but I had plenty of mix left, so I did the edges and ends of the boards as well, which will make it look better anyway if you look at it from an angle. And there it is, done except for drying. Now for the other two projects. The first one, I'm starting out painting the entire board black, and I'm just using some good old Rust-Oleum because I had some on hand. And I don't have to worry about this board rusting. It was pretty thick, and that little board didn't want to sit still, but I got it. Then the main board, I'm just painting the top 7.5 or 8 inches or so on this one. For the next one, I'm going to have to do a little masking with some tape because I'm going to spray paint on this. For the hat, I tape off 2 areas and it's ready for spraying. For the board part, this is a little more involved, and for some unknown reason, other than I'm still not very good at this, I didn't get that part filmed. So you'll just get to see the end results on that one. Well, we got the tree painted. We got the top of that board and that board painted. And we got this stuff strategically masked off and taken outside and spray painted. Now we get to wait for everything to dry. I just left it overnight and it was all ready to work with the next morning. I took the tape off and saw I had some color bleed under the tape, but that's no big deal really, as I'm going to brush paint up to it anyway. So it'll get covered. Starting out with some white latex paint, and no, I won't need that whole gallon, but it's what I had on hand. You've probably figured out by now that this is a Santa Claus, and this is for his beard and the brim and tassel on his hat. I had penciled out lines for the outline of the beard and his eyes and nose, so I'm painting up to the gently curved lines with my 1-inch wide chip brush. The tighter curves I'll need a smaller brush for. And I'm no artist, but with the smaller artist brush, I can paint up to my lines a little easier. I mixed in a drop of red to give a little color to that Santa nose. I need Squeezy to watch this video and tell me if I'm using this artist brush right. And you can leave a comment and tell me if you know that reference and who I'm talking about. Then I mixed in more white to lighten it up for the rest of his face. I was concentrating on the painting and not the camera shot, so I kept getting my head in the way. Sorry about that. You might be getting sick of watching me paint anyway. I don't know if that's boring to you, but I kind of think it's neat watching it sped up. Maybe because of the fact that I did it in real time, so seeing the transformation sped up, you get a good look at the transition in about 1/10 of the time. Yeah, this painting is kind of tedious, but it shows that you can make some fairly acceptable holiday yard art with minimal woodworking and limited artistic talent. Believe me, if I can do this, anybody can. I switched over to a cheap acid brush for the black, mainly because I want to keep my artist brushes for water-based paints, and this black is oil-based. And the oil-based paints take solvents to clean, and you can't always get all the color out of them. So this brush is a throwaway if need be. While you're watching this, I'd like to take a moment to thank you guys and gals out there for watching my videos. I really do appreciate that. And all the likes and comments, and I've even gotten a few hypes. Don't know if those really do anything, but I appreciate it all the same. And welcome to all you new subscribers. Glad to have you along for the ride. When you subscribe, it tells me that you kind of like what you see and you might be interested in seeing what I do in the future. So I do appreciate that, and it really does help grow the channel. So thanks. Anyway, back to the build. Here's what the Santa looks like all painted up, minus his hat, of course. Still have to put that on his head, but the painting is all done at least. Now back to the other project, and it's time to paint in some features on that one. I again drew in some features with a pencil, which I didn't bother to film, so I can do the paint by number thing again and paint inside the lines. Remember those? Paint by number sets? I don't even know if they still make those. Probably not. They require patience. Anyway, I do the eyes and a smile. And if you haven't figured this one out yet, this is a dead giveaway. I really don't have to be too accurate here, as on the real one, these are what, lumps of coal? They don't have to be perfectly round, which is good because this isn't the best brush for fine detail work, as you'll see here in a second. Oops, got a bit outside the lines on that one. And it doesn't really wipe off all that well, just smudged. Touch that up with some white. Oh well, guess I'll have some touch up to do with the white paint later. Now for a few buttons. I do some spinny twirly action with the brush, trying to get these a little more round-ish, and it kind of works. Bing, bang, boom, done. Painting all done on the snowman. Now it just needs to dry. I left it overnight and it was all dry the next morning. Cold in the shop again, but I'm going to try and get these done with a few finishing touches. First, the snowman needs a nose and a brim for his top hat. I lay him on there and eye it up, tilt the nose up a little and put a slight angle on the hat brim. Looks pretty good. I got the brad nailer hooked up to air, loaded with the correct brads, by the way. Give each one a little glue for good measure. 2 or 3 brads in each one. I didn't show you cutting the nose or painting it. It's just a simple pointy triangle of wood, brush painted orange, because, you know, it's a carrot. And that's done. Oh yeah, I still have to do that touch up of my black paint smudges with some white paint. Then, using a different technique, just using a stick with a flat end to dab paint, I add some detail to the eyes. And I think that looks a little like a snowman. Now back to the Santa. I need to attach his hat, so a little glue on the little unpainted strip I left there just for that. Then give it a look to see if I should tilt the hat a little and which way. I think that looks pretty good. Nail it. Now I'll just dab some white paint into those nail holes. Then give him a little life to his eyeballs. Well, that's worthy to be displayed on my porch, I think. So there are my Christmas decorations for this year. Pretty simple projects. The snowman and the Santa, 1x6 boards. But you can use anything for that, plywood even. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be any kind of special wood when you're painting it anyway. Did a little embellishment there on the snowman with the ribbon on his hat and for a scarf. And you guys out there with more artistic talent than me can probably do a better job on these things, but I think I came out with an acceptable snowman and Santa. These trees you can do in many different styles. I wanted to do one like this this year, a little bit different than the one I built before, and smaller, which is what I wanted. And you can do bases for these too if you want them to stand on their own. I'll keep these as porch leaners, I think. I'll probably figure out a way to secure them against the wind blowing them over, but all in all, I think they came out pretty good. So that's it for this time. See ya.